We've been talking to music teachers about how they've navigated teaching and functioning during the pandemic. Well, today we're joined by two teachers who have done just that in the same school, but there's something else kind of notable about them. We'll tell you about that coming up next. I'm Mark Despotakis, and this is PMEA's Take Note podcast presented by the Slippery Rock University Music Department. Welcome to another edition of Take Note. And as you can see on the screen, we have two guests with us today, and they are both on the same screen, which is so rare in Zoom world. We'll explain why that is in a minute. Well, you'll probably figure it out when I introduce them. Joe and Becky Sensor are both music teachers. All right, now give it away. They're married. So if you don't know them already, I guess I surprised them. You may have met them certainly at some PMEA conferences, and they're always doing something very innovative. So long before we started the podcast, I actually always said, these are folks that I would love to have a conversation with, just to hear some of the secret sauce of what you're doing in music classrooms. And that's all been kind of changed now in the past year with COVID. So we're going to get into all that. But before we get there, I'm going to let them kind of give the intro to themselves. Tell us where you teach and what you teach.
Okay. I'm Becky Sensor, and I teach at Dubois Area Middle School. And I teach 6th through 8th grade chorus and 5th grade, this year, 5th and 6th grade general music. That's actually changing for next year. And I have an after-school theater program.
I'm Joe Sensor. I do band 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade at Dubois Area Middle School.
All right, so teaching together. We'll come back to that for sure. But I want to talk about kind of, we love hearing these stories of the pandemic and how everybody reacted to it. So let's go back, 11 months ago now. I can't believe that it seems like yesterday, but it also seems like 10 years ago. But March 13th, 2020, the Friday the 13th is kind of the date that we all reference of, when our lives completely changed. Take us back to, that date, or even, just the period of time of what was the transition like for you guys at school?
I know that I believe it was that Wednesday, so the 11th, we had a department chair meeting, and we brought up, are we worried? Are we going to shut down? Is this something that's happening? And our assistant superintendent was just very, very, we are not shutting down unless the state says we have to shut down. Don't worry about it. But we all kind of left going, okay, we need to make a plan just in case. I know a lot of the department chairs on our way back over the district offices right across from the middle school, we were kind of like, I don't know. I just something feels like we might shut down. And then we were in the middle of rehearsing our 5th, I do a 7th and 8th grade musical, 5th and 6th grade play. And so we had 5th and 6th grade play rehearsal Thursday. And I had my first parent ask me, what are you going to do if school shuts down? Or are you still going to be able to perform? I think that's what it was. Because I think the governor had come out and said something about not having large groups of people. And I thought, oh boy, yeah, we can't really perform if we can't have a large group of people. So the next day, Friday the 13th, I walked in and I said to my principal, I'm starting to get parents asking me, can we still perform? We were 3 dress rehearsals away from our show. Can we still have kids perform? Meanwhile, Joe's getting ready to host Band Fest, and we were taking kids to Altoona Curve to perform for, I think, their season opener, and we had all these trips planned. And they said, well, you know what? We got confirmation. You can keep rehearsing, but we're going to push all performances to April, and you'll be fine. And we thought, oh, okay, well, we'll just push it all to April and we'll be fine. And sure enough, 3:00 that Friday, I had a stage full of students, and we had just told them, here's our new schedule. We're going to perform in April now. We're just going to keep doing this for a couple weeks with rehearsals. And they all got up on stage, and luckily most of them left their cell phones in their bags. And I had my phone back in the lighting booth and I got the message that the governor had just shut down all schools. And I didn't tell them to the end of rehearsal. And I wish so badly I would have recorded them because they had a great rehearsal. They were all really into it and having fun. And then I had to go up on stage and say, okay, well, we're not going to see each other for 2 weeks. But you just had this sense that it could be longer. And of course, we all know we did not go back until our school did go back at the end of August this year in a hybrid form. But that was that for our 2019-2020 school year. And so that moment, I don't know, I know we kind of shifted to the first 2 weeks being very, we're just hanging out around the house and kind of getting ideas in case we went virtual. And then I think both of us kind of went into like full on, we have to do something with these, with our students once we did know we were going to be virtual. And I think we went virtual on April 1st.
Yeah, it took a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
My room was filled with about 300 BandFest folders. I had literally just finished stuffing that week, and I had them all sorted and getting ready to send to the different schools.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm stuffing them the last couple of days, I'm like, it's not gonna happen. But I wanted to finish them anyway, just in case. But yeah. So those BandFest folders, I think, sat in little piles in my room, for the next, I don't know,
months.
Yeah, till we were allowed in to clean up. So that was. Yeah.
We had a fundraiser coming in on I think the 16th of March, and so it sat in storage. Luckily, it wasn't anything perishable; it was Yankee candles. So they sat in storage, and we answered parent emails for months about where their candles were until. It was, I think, May 18th, something around there. We were able to have parents and students come in and one at a time and like hand them things all masked. And
even more surprising were the boxes of Yankee candles that never got picked up that sat until this fall. Mm-hmm. The people that paid for, hundreds of dollars of candles and apparently, missed all of our messages about them and just never thought, hey, where are all those candles I sold?
Well, and I think the biggest frustration too for you was probably the fact that so many kids went home thinking they'd be back on Monday and didn't take their instruments.
Yeah, and they weren't allowed in to get them, and I wasn't allowed to go in and get them either. So a lot of my kids in the spring didn't have instruments at all.
So what did you do? How did you?
Well, we did theory stuff. I mean, whatever lessons I could put together when we did virtual learning for the rest of the year. Luckily, like all the major software platforms, like the online learning, all of those people made them free. So I found a good theory program that I used, and we used Soundtrap, which is like a online digital recording and music creation suite. So I had my kid, did whatever we could. But I mean, some of the kids, it took them a long time to get internet figured out at home and to get devices. So all throughout that virtual learning last spring, there was a fairly significant chunk of my kids that just didn't really get much done. So a lot of them did great, mm-hmm. and a lot of them were in between. And then there was a whole chunk that just, I don't know what was going on.
And I think that was the biggest frustration is, and I think for all of us, not just in music, but all teachers, is you worry about those kids because you're not getting any feedback from them. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what their situation is. And so I think it was a strange almost sense of loss during that time that, we weren't going to get to do all the fun stuff that we had planned for the spring and that we have planned for all the springs. And that was tough. But I think more so was this, you don't get that closure of a school year where you say goodbye, like for us, because we're middle school teachers, we don't get to say goodbye to our 8th graders and wish them luck when they go up to the high school. And there was this sense of, boy, they were really accomplishing so much. And it just came to such an abrupt stop. And even though we did pretty well at getting, some very enriching activities online when we did get online, we were never going to get back to where we were March 13th, when we were in the middle of the momentum of going towards COS. I think we both said it was probably the best our ensembles were prepared in the earliest. They were really prepared to have, really strong spring concerts. And then it just never mind, So that's always tough. We have another colleague at the middle school with us, Christina Keith. There's the three of us that teach music together, and we joked that we cursed everybody because we had walked across the stage at some point. We had done a really big fall musical. We did Willy Wonka, and it had like 117 people in the cast, and it went off so well, and we got everything cleaned off the stage. The whole set struck, and the very next week he hosted county band, and we were setting up for that, and we were just like, wow, everything is going so well this year. And it was like that moment that the universe said, oh, okay. We got something else for you planned. So it was a weird, I think personally and professionally, a weird place to find ourselves. Suddenly, just how do we regain that momentum that we had in person with our kids, now that we were all virtual. So.
And it's interesting to hear you talk about the internet connectivity issue. A lot of people are calling it the homework gap, because that's been such an issue in all areas of education. Add on to just how complicated it is to do music education in that area. But so did your district try to react in any way to solve that problem?
Our district sent home hundreds of Chromebooks, hundreds of personal hotspots.
Cellular hotspots.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job. They really did. They provided lunch every day of the pandemic when we were shut down. When we went back in the fall, we were in a hybrid model, and they would send kids home with a lunch every day for the next day when they weren't in school, because it was an every other day thing. And they did a fantastic job of really looking out for the students' welfare during this time, and trying their best, to make sure everyone had the necessary tools to be able to get online and be a part of, our learning community, even though it was very different than what we were used to.
So let's talk about going back to school in the fall. So you go back in a hybrid mode, and that in a lot of ways means you're doing double work, because you're worrying about who's in class, who's at home. And I've always said that, for a math class that might transfer, a little easier, but in a music class, especially a class built around an ensemble situation, that's really complicated. So I'm curious about, you kind of had the summer to, I guess, think about, well, this might be what it's going to be in the fall, but none of us knew, right? None of us knew in the summer. What did pivoting look like for you in the fall?
For us, they initially wanted to go back 5 days, but we were very late because we're in the center part of the state. We didn't initially have a lot of cases, but right around the time we were planning on going back, we started to see a spike in cases. So they made the decision while we were already in service for the teachers, we were going to do the hybrid. And I think that was a very good plan. I don't think we were quite ready to go back 5 days a week. There was a lot of adjusting to do, I think, mentally for all of us, having masks, social distancing. Our school decided around that same time they were going to put all of our students in cohorts for contact tracing purposes. So our students are with the same group of people. A couple weeks before school started, we had a meeting with our principals in our building. And they said, the first thing they said during the meeting, it was just the three music teachers in our building and our principals. And the first thing they said is, we need to keep music going. The kids need music. It's important at our school. We need to keep music going. And that made us, I think that gave me, a sense of relief. I do have colleagues that I know of that here we are in February. They're not singing, they're not playing, and they haven't all year. And we were very fortunate that it was never in question if we were going to play, if we were going to sing. It was how we were going to do it. And it was, what would it look like? How can we be safe and smart about it? And we still had parents. I know I have parents whose students have not participated this year because they are worried. that no matter what we do, would it be safe? But we very closely followed all the aerosol studies that were published, and we provided those to our administration, and we have done the best we could to follow them. We have not had full ensembles this whole school year. We have had small groups throughout from those cohorts basically that are now in our school. So, you know, instead of 3 large ensembles a week, and then small groups that, you know, are kind of the extra practice they get. We just have the small groups, and we have like, I don't know, I have like 18 and you probably have like 21 or something like that, since you have an extra grade. But Christina does 5th grade course. So it's very, it's different. It's nice to see them though. I'll take them in small groups over not seeing them at all any day. We sing with masks. We have everything, all the chairs have tape on the floor so they don't move them closer than 6 feet, you know, together. Chorus is all done over on the stage. So there is plenty of room to spread out. It is different. It is very different. But at the same time, there's moments where it feels like the same old classes and the way it, you know, it would be. I know a big challenge for Joe, and I'll let him speak about this, is we weren't able to go out and recruit the same way that we usually do. We still made a video. We still highlighted all the cool stuff we did, you know, before the shutdown. The year before, we sent that to 4th grade teachers throughout our district to show to our incoming 5th graders, because we are a 5 through 8 school. And it doesn't replace every year the band going out on tour and playing at each of our 4 elementary schools. It couldn't replace that. It couldn't replace us actually speaking to the kids face to face and handing them that sign up form. So it was slow rolling in to get started at the beginning of the year. And our elementary this year, we usually start band students in 4th grade, have not started instrument lessons this year. And so the decision was made for a variety of reasons. There's also some construction projects going on in some of the elementary schools, but because of COVID, and they don't have large spaces like we do, they have not started instrumental lessons at the elementary school. So that poses a new challenge that next year he's starting kids from scratch, which we're not really, in the past, haven't been set up to do. So I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
Well, we don't know yet. I mean, I know I was really worried about my 5th grade band numbers, and we're only about 10% down from normal. But in that group, though, there's some kids that are at-home learners, and varying levels of how much instrumental participation is going on. I know early in the year, everybody was alternating days, so everybody was an at-home learner at least a few days a week. Mm-hmm. And I was able to get some kids started. And I know, I was really worried. All the things you've read about, the camera reversals in Zoom, and kids that, learn with their hand. I mean, kids get their hands mixed up on clarinet anyway. But even, I've heard from people that when they finally saw some of their kids in person, they realized that their hands were backwards because of the camera reversal. And, they're seeing this little things on the screen. But one 5th grade saxophone player that I started from scratch this year, that because that's the other thing too, is all my 5th graders lost a big chunk of their year last year in band. And, it was the same sort of thing. I think some of them had instruments at home, some of them were playing, some of them may not have been. So, they really didn't even get a full year last year. And so I was really kind of worried, once I did see some of these kids in person, what it was going to be like. And one saxophone player that, when she did start coming face to face, I had started her online this fall, and she did great. So I was like, oh, thank you. Mostly I was feeling like, as far as a testimony to myself, and like, okay, I mean, how well can we do this whole online? It's so weird because so much in beginning band involves moving fingers onto the right keys and, telling them left hand on top. I mean, left hand on top, and then with the camera, it gets really confusing. Even standing in front of the kids, a lot of times, they get confused. So it's just taking something that's already difficult and just making it a million times harder. So I am happy that I can see my kids, you know, my largest, and I have my room like gridded out in squares with painter's tape, so the kids are separated. And, you know, I have a few classes where every single chair is filled, you know, where I have 20 some kids in there, and I have all my snare drums. I have a row of like 7 or 8. Most of them have like silencers on them. So it's not too loud, but I mean, that's really weird too, because you need, you know, you want to have your percussionists close together so they can listen to each other and lock in, and that even just, that's a weird thing. So it's all very different, but at least something's happening. And like Becky said, you know, there are a lot of schools where they haven't been allowed to play or sing at all, and there's, you know, so we're doing what we can. It's definitely not the same, but it's you know, it's about as good as I think it can be right now.
And I think with general music, we've kind of taken advantage of, there's always those things you want to do and you never have time. When we have the kids every day for 9 weeks, and you think, boy, I've always wanted to do this and I never had time, but this year we're not playing ukuleles because we're not sharing instruments, and we're not doing guitar. So let's do this. We called Lowe's, we got 35 buckets for free, and they gave us, you know, we got those, and I got some drumsticks from Donors Choose, and we've been doing bucket drumming, and we've been doing some more composition things that we've never done before that have been really fun for the kids, that they've really enjoyed. And so we've kind of taken advantage of, okay, well, let's rethink this a little bit. This is the year to try some new things, and kind of reach out and figure out how to do things, really take advantage of the Google Education Suite. And the kids' skills are very impressive, what they can do with Google Slides and Google Docs, compared to, you know, what many of the adults in our building can do. So, you know, learning how to we usually make bingo cards with rhythms or instruments. Okay, well, let's do that virtually. You know, let's do that through Google Docs, and they can make their own card. Or let's, you know, instead of, we can't put on, we used to put on a miniature class musical based on a folktale that they would have a week to put together. And it's a really fun project. I can't wait to get back to it live. But what can we do this year? Well, they made slideshows and showed me, you know, individually how they would set the stage. You know, kind of like the virtual classrooms you see teachers do, and they got to make their own virtual spaces, like a stage would be. And just rethinking, you know, this whole virtual world. I do think, my hope is when we get back to doing things live, it's exciting for everybody and everyone wants to get involved, because I think we're all sick of the word virtual. And I think people are going to want more hands-on, real experiences, because it's something, you know, we and I'm somebody who's so much of a homebody, and like, I love to not go out when I can avoid it. And I'm even to the point where I'm like, I want to go do something. And that's not me, right? And like, usually, but right now I'm like, I can't wait to get out of the house.
You left the house on a Saturday yesterday.
I did. No, I do.
You know, I think you guys, you know, you really are lucky in that you are able to have some students in some type of an ensemble setting. Because, you know, as you point out, there are so many that haven't been to that point yet. And just what I'm hearing, and just from what I've known of you guys over the years, is, you know, you're just creative people. So you're figuring a way to weather, you know, through here's how to do this, here's how to do that. You know, like when I saw that you had posted the bucket drumming, I'm like, well, yeah, that it's yeah, that makes sense, duh. But I mean, to then go and do it, and okay, because that's a little bit of legwork behind the scenes. So I think that's wonderful that you're thinking through every one of those. So okay, let me pivot to the other big topic here. All right, so music teachers that are married probably isn't this totally obscure thing, but ones that are teaching together in the same building, you know, complementary ensembles, you know, you're doing vocal, you're doing instrumental. I guess I probably have a million questions on that, but so how long have you been teaching together in the same building?
In the same building, what, 8 years?
I think so.
This is the 8th year that we're in the same building.
And obviously it works, because you're
you're
on camera together.
Going back to Joe's first job, he was the marching band director at a Catholic school, and I was still in college. and I would come up every weekend and be his assistant director and help with, marching band. And we just always worked really well together. I Some would argue we work better together than we do at living together sometimes, because we know our
Some would say.
Someone.
Some would.
But I think it works so well because he is the band guy and I'm the chorus. You know what I mean? And then we have our I don't want to say our places, but we have our roles. We know what we need to do, and we're willing to help the other one and not step on their toes at work. You know what I mean? I want him to succeed. He's my colleague. He wants me to succeed, and I think that's why it works so well. We're, like-minded in the thought that we want all students to love music, and we want it to be for everybody. And we're also really willing to learn from each other, I think. I know we've been dabbling, my chorus kids this year especially, and we really started last year, but we've been moving a little bit into modern band and rock ensemble and little kids rock curriculum. And he knows a lot more about so many of those things from teaching guitar lessons and different things throughout the years. And I've learned a lot from him. And I know when we've done, musicals and things, we're active in our local community theater. I've been able to help him out with some of his projects with vocal things. He loves to send both Christina and I, our other music colleague, are flute players. And so he often sends flute players our way to help with things. And I think we really are like the Three Musketeers, though, including Christina, the three of us. We really want the music department to succeed. And as colleagues, it's easy. I don't know. It's like, I don't want to say I don't think of you as my husband when we're at work, but it's very much one of those things where it's like we're colleagues, we want the same things, we want to succeed, and we have fun doing it. So it's been successful.
I'm curious, a lot of people have trouble separating work from home. And even if it's a job that you love and you're very passionate about, that's complicated for anyone. But your situation is, is there even a line? I mean, is it just completely blurred, or are you able to say, okay, that's work, we're home now?
It's completely blurred. It's like an impressionistic painting. Our children will tell you that there's been several dinners, several car rides where all we talk about is band and chorus and musicals and things we're doing at work and student X and guess what student Y did, and did I tell you of what happened the other day when so-and-so tried the drum set, things like that. You know what I mean? It's maybe a cautionary tale of what can happen when everything kind of revolves around one subject. You know what I mean? Because I will say, when shutdown happened and we didn't have that, I think we both kind of were like, we live event to event to event is
Sure.
what our lives are. And, concert to musical to concert to, field trip to whatever. We live event to event to event. And I think suddenly there were no events. And so we each had to be like, what do? We need to find something. We're busy people. And we needed to find something to do. And so I do think we both found kind of our own things to do. And they were separate things during quarantine. That was healthy, I think, to not rely on having to do things together all the time. So, but we're both exceptionally busy during the school day as well. And I think that really probably helps our situation out too. We don't see each other once school starts.
Not usually, no.
And I'm in the music room is right beside the band room. It's only separated by instrument storage. And you can go through the instrument storage room into the band room from the music room. And even those days, it's rare that we have time to break away and see one another. I mean, it is also convenient, at lunch to pop my head in and be like, did you pay the car bill or whatever?
Right.
You know what I mean? which is nice.
You have to fill up your coffee maker from my sink.
I
That's
do.
about
He's the only
time.
one with the sink. So, so that's when we do together.
Very cool. So I just want to talk about briefly what's on the horizon. I know that so we're kind of maybe emerging a little bit. Case numbers are starting to go down. So what projects, plans do you have in place for the end of the school year? Of course, full well knowing that plans change on a daily, hourly basis.
I know that we're planning on doing our spring concert virtual. We did a virtual holiday concert and it went off really well. It was kind of fun it would have been a lot easier to put everyone on a stage and play or sing. But hours of editing later, it was nice. The kids still got to sing and play, and they could kind of help us come up with a storyboard of what the videos of their songs were going to look like. And now that we did it once, that we've gotten a little better at it. I know for the choir, March Music in Our Schools Month, we're going to jump on the sea shanty TikTok popularity.
Yeah.
And we are learning a sea shanty that we're going to record and put out in March for Music in Our Schools Month. And then my boys especially are so into it. Like they sing it in the hallways during the day. And I've never heard, like, even when they really like normal songs, they don't sing it in the hallways, but I hear it all day and it makes me happy. But we're planning on our traditional Pops concert is how we end the year. The kids pick the songs and we do a Pops concert. So they're voting on that right now, and we're going to do it virtually. We probably won't do as much music, but each grade will do a couple songs and we will put it out there. I'd love to do, I keep saying maybe if things are better by summer, we have an amphitheater right across the street in a park right across from our middle school. It would be great to get together and maybe sing live. I know when we finally do have live performances, it's going to be a super emotional event because it's something I know we miss so much, but that's what we have planned in Choirland. I don't know what you've planned in Bandland.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got a couple songs down right now. Since my kids have used Soundtrap, I have a group of them that are pretty good at recording. And so I'm hoping to start with that group recording themselves on their parts. And we've been practicing everything with recordings with the intent of, I mean, for one thing, it's nice because they get to hear, in my particular groups, they're not like lesson groups that I get to choose. They're when the kids have their study halls, basically. That's when we get them. And so they're mixed. I could have any variety of instruments in any particular class. And so one nice thing about that is that I have 3 kids learning the timpani part instead of usually I would pick one, with intent that they would be performing that, So since we're not all at the same time, I have redundancy in that. So I have some kids that, multiple kids learning different percussion parts. So I don't have to make a lot of the tough decisions that I usually have to make about, okay, what parts am I going to double in percussion? What parts am I going to have some kids sit out on a song, which is never a good thing. Music, I mean, musically it's a good thing because you don't want too many people on there, but educationally and behavior wise, it's not generally good to have middle school percussion just kind of chilling back there. They'll be practicing their rudiments surely.
Surely, yeah.
But since I'm doing stuff as recordings, I have editorial control over how loud I want things or individual parts. So I did this back in Christmas time too. I'd had some and in some cases too, we occasionally have kids out on quarantine. I think you said how like your play.
We have 2 right now, yeah.
So theoretically too, if I were to pick one person for that timpani part that has a solo in it, and Billy's quarantined. I mean, I've kind of joked with my kids about recording stuff at home, and some of the percussionists, yeah, I'll get my vibraphone out and record this part for you, Mr. Sensor. But yeah. Well, and speaking of instruments going home too, I have a 5th grade tuba player I started this fall, and he's been I don't even know what's going on. He's missed like 32 days of school. So, that tuba went home with him. So now, those are like more fun little things there too, trying to get the instruments back. But recording is nice individual stuff because, I also have kids that maybe play more than one instrument. I've got a couple woodwind players that, they can play tenor, they could play alto, or maybe clarinet. And so they can actually record all three parts. And so they get to, normally in a concert, I mean, even if they played three instruments, they wouldn't be able to play them all at once. Right. But now with the recording, some of those really talented and ambitious kids, like I have a girl that's, she's recorded the first trumpet part, she's going to do the second trumpet part, she'll probably do the baritone part, and just because they're able to do more. Those are kids that I might have had do solos or something like that, maybe if they were really ambitious. But this is an easy way to get them to try doing some different stuff. And as they lay those parts and they get to hear how those things work together, they're also being a little critical of tone. That's the one thing that they listen to themselves a little more critically now. Like they're like, oh yeah, I guess I did miss that note. Yeah. I guess maybe I am flat. Yeah. I mean, you can auto tune in Soundtrap, and I played around with that a little bit before, but you don't want your clarinet sounding like T-Pain if you can help it. So, but there's been some good learning from that too, because generally we're used to, music performance being, an ephemeral thing. It happens and it's, you can think back and remember, and maybe you made a recording but now, I mean, you can really lean into it. You can listen to that track 20 times. And I in Soundtrap, you can cut and punch in and record different sections. And I have some of the kids' tracks are just because they punched in so many times to fix things, or they've gone back and redone it multiple times. And, they get it. It's interesting. They're learning some things. So, I mean, we may, like I've thought about, maybe, using a larger space, like maybe spreading them out more and getting some groups together. I know, like, because of the way my classes are mixed up, I don't have the benefit of like all my flutes being together. And so I talked to the kids a little bit because the stronger ones help the weaker ones along when we start learning stuff in ensemble groups. That's typically, a big thing that I notice once we start running through the songs, not just in small groups with the big group. Normally things come together faster because they'll hear, oh yeah, okay, yeah. They'll get inspired by the better ones, and they'll maybe work a little harder. And so I don't have that benefit right now. So I've talked about that a little bit, maybe trying to have them come down and figure some things out that we could do. We definitely want to try to get something going on with the elementaries. Maybe I can bring a small group out in the spring and we can do something outside. Especially with not having fourth grade band having started this year, we'll have to try to do something to pump it up. We made recruiting videos that we sent to the kids last year, and some things like that. And I know, like I said, we're only down about 10%, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, if anyone that I would say was prepared for the onset of a pandemic that didn't know was coming, it would be the two of you. Because as I've kind of watched what you've done over the years, it's always been innovative. It's always been keeping up with the times and what we're doing. And it's so funny when you said TikTok, you would have probably come up with something to do with TikTok, even if we were back to school in person, because that's, that's just kind of the way that both of you think about let's keep current with the students. So I think that is so impressive and a credit to what both of you are doing. I thank you guys for taking the time to chat with us today to get a little more insight into what you're doing. And I certainly wish you the best of luck as I'll dub you maybe one of Pennsylvania's music education power couples, we'll say. So thank you so much for joining us, and keep up the wonderful work.
All right.
And to all of you, thank you for joining us on PMEA's Take Note podcast presented by the Slippery Rock University Music Department. We want to thank our sponsors, the Bucknell University Music Department, Lebanon Valley College, and Robert M. Sides Family Music Centers. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.